So you don't have to rely on coffee to get through your day, right? So many of us, especially if you're in the perimenopausal phase, which is typically in your early 40s, late 40s, early 50s, or you're already hitting menopause, or you've hit menopause, so many of us deal with low energy, low or chronic fatigue. If you're already dealing with a chronic illness like an autoimmune condition, fatigue and chronic pain are the two most common symptoms. And after today's session, we'll be able to understand why that is so. However, what I want you to know is that there are certain steps that you can take to ensure that you improve your energy levels at a very, very foundational level. And you will start seeing improvements, most likely from right from the beginning. But however, of course, if there are multiple factors at play, which is usually the case uh, in any chronic illness, then it takes a bit of time. But you will know if you're on the right track. You will know if you start seeing an improvement in your energy, or reduction in your fatigue. And the good thing is that by taking some of these measures, you will also notice an improvement in many of your other symptoms, which we may not be touching upon today, because today I want to focus more on energy production, more on, mitochondrial health, and some of what is at play behind cellular energy production, right? Some of these things you may already know, because they are common causes behind fatigue or low energy levels. But a couple of other things you may not even be aware of. So I want to help you today to take practical steps to move towards more vibrant health and higher energy levels, right? So let's get started. Let me start with a few common reasons why you have low energy levels. And also, I just want to, if you like what I have said here, if you have certain key takeaways from this live session, make sure that you send me a DM on Instagram at Anindita Runta, or send me a message here and let me know how this session has helped you. Just one key takeaway from today's session. I would love to hear from you, and make sure that if you connect with me, either here with a message or on, as a DM on Instagram at Anindita Runta, I'll make sure that I will share one more tip, or maybe one particular thing that will help you to go along further, depending on what you share with me. So make sure that you connect with me. And let's start with with this quote by Karen Salmanson, and she says, "Focus on health, energy, and vitality, not weight." So many women, when I talk to them, they're focused on weight loss. Of course, I understand. Weight gain actually, or weight loss resistance, often goes hand in hand with poor cellular energy production. And there are many reasons for that, primarily hormonal imbalances. But what I would like to invite you to is to take a different approach, and focus on your vitality, on creating health from the bottoms up, rather than only focusing on weight. Weight will start falling off as a byproduct if you start incorporating whatever we discussed today, right? So I invite you to take a different approach to your health creation process, whether you already have a diagnosed disease, or if you're just looking to enhance your energy production and feel more energetic and vibrant as you used to. It doesn't really matter. I invite you to take a very different approach towards your own health creation. So the first and foremost way in which we typically have an issue in terms of um, low energy levels is simply the fact that we are not taking in enough of the nutrients which are required for energy production. These are nutrients like magnesium, iron, the whole lot of B vitamins, maybe selenium, So all of these and many more, vitamin C, vitamin E, etc., all of these are necessary for energy production at various levels. So if you're not getting any, in these from your diet, then you are going to have have an issue with producing enough energy at very cellular level, right? And typically, either the reason why we don't get enough of these nutrients is either A, because we are not consuming them from our foods. So it can be that we are having mostly processed foods, we are having maybe junk foods to that extent, or foods loaded with toxins. So that might be a problem. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure that, yeah. So if we are facing issue with processed foods, we are not having enough nutrients that are coming in from our diet, simply because we don't really manufacture these nutrients inside our bodies. We need to be able to absorb it through from our foods, which primarily should include a whole lot of vegetables, but also healthy proteins and healthy fats, and fruits, right? So that's at a macro level. I'm going to pinpoint a few things, as we go along, when I share with you 5 natural ways that you can increase your energy. And the other thing that happens is poor, digestion and malabsorption. That's also, extremely common, and it's a very, very upstream factor in poor energy production. This is extremely common with my own clients because they are dealing with severe chronic illnesses like autoimmune conditions, and one of the unfortunate requisites for developing autoimmune disease is poor gut health, or or specifically enhanced intestinal permeability, aka leaky gut. So poor nutrient absorption and malabsorption goes hand in hand with that. So that's the first thing, right? And anemia and optimal levels of hemoglobin takes a hit because iron is necessary for that, and you need hemoglobin to transport oxygen to each and every cell of your body. So if you're not getting enough iron, either because you're not having enough iron rich foods, or your body is storing iron away from infections, that typically happens in the form of high levels of ferritin, or the most common reason is anemia, where your body is not making enough hemoglobin, or the red blood cells, or the number of red blood cells, or even if they're making the red blood cells which will carry hemoglobin and oxygen to each and every cell in your body, the size is too small, right? So all of these reasons, and anemia, as you would know, is an extremely common factor for women, especially menstruating women and women on vegetarian or vegan diets who don't get enough iron from their foods. But it can also happen to non-vegetarians. I've had enough non-vegetarian clients because of poor digestion and absorption capabilities. They were not able to take in the iron that they were consuming. So because of all of these reasons, you might be struggling with poor energy production. The other thing that, the second reason that I want to share with you is gut dysbiosis, right? Which is a fancy word for poor gut health, which means that there is some sort of imbalance going on. Typically, as far as the microbes in your gut are concerned, there are about a few trillions of microbes, which includes both beneficial and pathogenic yeast, bacteria, fungi, and others, which have a symbiotic relationship with you. I have been talking about it. I've been writing about it. And you might have read about it as well. It's now in the mainstream media, wherein having poor balance of good and bad bacteria can lead to further downstream consequences, which are not limited to, but are, for example, poor digestion, because you're not producing enough digestive enzymes, and there is low stomach acid production. They're all tied to your gut health. That takes a hit, because of which you have downstream effects of poor absorption or even malabsorption in many severe cases. And of course, imbalances in your gut can also lead to enhanced intestinal permeability, further aggravating an immune system response, and a cycle of chronic rampant inflammation. So this is a vicious cycle that many people get into. So making sure that you are able to manage your gut health is extremely critical. All right. So this is actually where we start when we deal with any kind of chronic illness, especially autoimmune conditions. The other thing is a very, very common thing is chronic stress. Now, when we talk about stress, we usually think of emotional stress or, emotional triggers or mental stress. And of course, they are very real in our modern hectic lifestyle. But the other kind of stressors that you may or may not know about is physiological stress, which means toxin exposure, which means food sensitivities to gluten and dairy and many other foods, and microbial imbalances, which I just touched upon, and even medications that you might be taking, for any kind of illnesses. So all of these also contribute to chronic stress. These are chronic stressors for your body, right? A lack of good quality sleep is a chronic stress for your body. So all of these are stressors. You may or may not feel all of them initially, but symptoms come at the end. So they do show up eventually. And, it's way down the line. This is disease progression that you actually get a disease diagnosis. So rather than waiting for these symptoms to start cropping up, rather than waiting for years down the line to finally get a diagnosis, a healthier approach to long-term health creation would be to actually start addressing this right, from when you become aware of it. So if you have become aware of these things now, then you need to start today. And I'm going to share with you 5 ways that you can do that. So so all of these, what happens is that any kind of chronic stress leads to a fight, flight, or hide response where your body is in constant survival mode. And when your body is in survival mode, it will prioritize survival over everything else. So it will prioritize survival over obviously reproduction, which is when your sex hormones also sort of become imbalanced over time. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. None of this happens overnight simply because your body is a dynamic and flexible and an amazing thing or a machine, and it has evolved over millions of years. If we were unable to deal with it, any of these situations in the short run, we would, our species would have died out long ago. So our bodies are really equipped to deal with short-term stress. What we are dealing with is chronic stress, which is not what it was designed to take care of, and that's where the problem lies. So again, coming back to fight, flight, or survival mode, when you're in survival mode, your body will prioritize that over everything else, like, whether it's, thyroid production, conversion of T4 to T3, which is required for optimal metabolism. So everything, all your resources, whether it's digestion, optimal digestion, that's actually one of the biggest things to take a hit. So you basically end up in a vicious cycle because your stress is leading to poor stomach acid production, leading to enzymes, suboptimal production or release of digestive enzymes, which then leads to poor absorption of minerals and vitamins, which are necessary for, say, optimal, hormonal balance or thyroid production. So it's like a vicious cycle. This is just one way that you get stuck in a vicious cycle. So what you would need to take care of is ensuring that you are not constantly living in a chronic survival mode. You have to find ways to get out of that, whether it's meditation, journaling, deep breathing, anything, right? Yoga. So all of these, because eventually these will lead to thyroid, suboptimal thyroid function, as I mentioned, which leads to slower and slower metabolism, weight gain, which is actually one of the primary reasons why you're not able to lose weight. There are, of course, other reasons for it as well. And cortisol imbalances, right? Which is when you have cortisol imbalance, eventually end up with very low energy levels. So this is what's really going on. But one last thing that I want to talk about is mitochondrial dysfunction, because the health of your mitochondria. Now, what is mitochondria? Mitochondria is a battery or the powerhouse of each and every cell in your body. This is where energy production takes place in the form of ATP. It's not really stored but used up, and there so there you have trillions of mitochondria in your body. And what happens is it's a key regulator for health and vitality. So your mitochondrial health is extremely critical for energy production, because as I mentioned, that's where the energy production takes place. But anything that hampers it. So when you produce energy, you also produce free radicals. It's like combustion. We produce heat and smoke. That has to be taken care of. So anytime that you are producing energy, also producing heat and smoke, like if you think of an engine, in our bodies, we call it free radicals, which creates oxidative stress, which is why we have antioxidants from foods to quench that, so that our mitochondria does not get damaged easily. However, this is a natural process of aging, because as we grow older, our natural antioxidant production and support keeps going down, which is why our mitochondria starts getting affected and it starts affecting energy production. It's a natural part of aging. But the point is that you can actually, sort of prevent that to a certain extent, and take care of that. So while you will of course continue to lead to poor energy production, there are many things that are in your control even when you grow older to prevent a lot of these effects of aging, right? So this is mitochondrial dysfunction. The last bit about mitochondrial health is something called autophagy, which is where your mitochondria have the unique capability of repairing, recycling, and reusing the cell parts for regeneration. This is an activity this gets hampered by higher and higher levels of oxidative stress as we grow older, but it can also happen much earlier. This typically happens in the case of chronic conditions like autoimmune diseases, where the antioxidant production, the recycling of antioxidants gets hampered, leading to higher levels of oxidative stress and more mitochondrial damage. So one of the key areas that we need to focus on in any kind of chronic illness is actually getting more antioxidant support primarily from food and stop further mitochondrial damage. But this can also happen with or without a diagnosis. You don't need you don't need to have a disease diagnosis to know that this might be already taking place, because as I mentioned, these are very basic things that typically hamper energy production. All of these may not be applicable to you, but at some level or the other, we are taking in a lot of toxins. We are living in, many of us are living in chronic survival mode. So all of these do impact our mitochondrial health. So you need to, I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Again, if you have any questions, make sure that you comment below. If you're watching it on replay, I will make sure that I get back to you. Comment below in come join our Facebook group at Healing from Within with Anindita, and make sure that you comment in the below this post so that I can sort of get back to you. And I would also like to hear from you and maybe support you. So make sure that you send me a DM on Instagram at Anindita Runta, or you can also send me a message in the private message in Facebook as well. And share with me one key takeaway from today's session, and I will be sure to respond to you with one action step, which is going to be specific to you to help you increase your energy production. And finally, let's just go through the 5 natural ways of boosting energy production without caffeine, without coffee. So the first thing is, of course, as you would figure out by now, it's going to be, in a sort of diet, right? Having your all the vitamins and the minerals that are necessary for energy production is very important. So that's the first thing that you would need to take care of, right? So making sure that you're focusing on whole grains, making sure that you're getting enough vegetables, vegetables are the ones that give you, maximum of the nutrients without spiking your blood sugar. But anyway, overall, having a diet based primarily on plants, but with adequate intake of healthy fats and proteins. So if you're a non-vegetarian, that would mean that having a certain amount of fish, eggs, chicken, meat. And if you are a vegetarian, that can mean, typically many of us may not tolerate dairy products. So if dairy is okay, fermented dairy is always a better choice. But if dairy does not suit you, then it would typically mean consumption of lentils and pulses, kidney beans, chickpeas, all the other lentils, but also nuts and seeds are extremely good sources of healthy proteins and fats. That's a beauty. And of course, healthy fats would be included in all of this, but also your cooking oils, which should be unprocessed to not fuel further inflammation. So it would mean cold pressed cooking oils like cold pressed sesame, cold pressed coconut, cold pressed mustard oil, these are not heavily refined, and they should smell like the source. And the other thing would be, of course, ghee, which is clarified butter, or even olive oil, avocado oil, cold pressed, right? So all of these, so diet. The other thing would be to avoid junk food, avoid processed foods. Processed foods tend to be, one is, depleted in nutrients. So they don't have fiber, they don't have nutrients, they don't really add value. And the other thing that they do have typically is toxins, whole lot of toxins in the form of all kinds of artificial flavorings, colorings, and preservatives. So you're taking in a whole lot of toxins without getting any of the nutrients, typically spikes blood sugar, and also adds to the oxidative stress, which we are trying to minimize here. So this is as far as junk foods are concerned or processed foods are concerned. Third would be to practice intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting has a whole host of benefits, but put very simply, what it would mean that you compress your eating window. That's the easiest way to do intermittent fasting. Of course, it needs to go hand in hand. You should not be pregnant while doing that. You should not be suffering from severe kidney issues, or maybe even blood sugar imbalances. So if you're having blood sugar fluctuations, so there are certain health issues that you might be facing, which may not, so intermittent fasting may not be for you. So I would advise fasting like this, if you're already facing severe health problems, to take the help of someone, a coach or a functional medicine practitioner, to take the help and then do this kind of a fasting. But if you don't have these kind of issues, and if you have somebody to support you, then intermittent fasting is an excellent tool for improving the health of your mitochondria, because it actually reduces oxidative stress and gives your cells a breather, and helps to repair and heal your cells, and thus contribute to energy production. And it means that you compress your eating window to 8 hours. That would mean that you typically have a 16-hour fast, or even if you can't manage that, start with a 12-hour eating window and keep on reducing it to maybe about 8 hours. So typically what I do is that I typically end my dinner by 8, and the next day I apart from just water and beverages which don't spike blood sugar, so tea without sugar with a hint of milk, or maybe black coffee in the morning, I don't consume anything else. Ensure that you are adequately hydrated. That's actually important. So all of that can really help with your energy production. And so that's how intermittent fasting would look like. So you will be fast. Suppose you finish your dinner at 8, the next meal you would have at 12 o'clock the next day. So that's when you're fasting for 16 hours. And of course, if you're not able to do that, start with 12. That would mean that you stop your dinner at 8 and have your breakfast not before 8 in the morning, but slowly push it back, right? So maybe increase it to 9, 10, 11, 12 p.m. So you're increasing your or decreasing your eating window. That's the easier way to look at it, approach it. And one of the primary things that it helps doing, as I mentioned, mitochondrial health is also to help you lose belly fat, which is actually also contributing to hormonal imbalances. So it helps in many different ways. But right now we're talking about energy production. The fourth thing, so the first thing that I mentioned to you is diet. The second thing was to avoid junk food. The third is to practice intermittent fasting. The fourth is to keep moving. So when I say keep moving, it does not mean going to the gym every single day. What I mean is typically high intensity interval training, which means that you're heart rate goes up, then you bring it down, then it goes up, then you bring it down. That's proven to be really, really effective for building your muscle. Your muscle is what you need to focus on for building endurance. That's where majority of mitochondria lives, whether it's your heart muscle, whether it's your any muscle in your body, and it helps to increase the number and size of the mitochondria. So as we grow older, we need to move away from doing only cardio to also doing HIIT training with the help of weights, strength training and HIIT training. You can have a combination, and for that, you don't need to go to the gym. Personally, I've been doing this for the past 3, 4, 5 years now, where I do a combination of, it's a HIIT training, which includes weights. Right? And you can start with lower weights if you've never done weights before. And of course, ideally, you should take the help of someone to devise this program for you if you've never really exercised before, and it does not need to be in the gym. So, and even walking, but walking at different paces can help you with this. If you're dealing with low energy levels and you don't have the energy or the strength to start with weights, etc., and a HIIT training right now, what you can do is start by 30 minutes of walking, but walking at different paces. There are many apps, many resources to help you with this, to show you how to do this. So that's what you can start with, and then slowly, as your energy level starts increasing, you can basically start adding the other things. Just checking if okay. And the fifth thing is focusing on good quality sleep. We talk about diet, we talk about exercise, we talk about a lot of things, and we often forget one very important thing, which is sleep. Sleep is critical if you want to heal and repair your cells, especially and also for optimal brain neural function. It protects the brain by clearing out your neural pathways of waste products. That's one of the primary reasons why we need proper sleep, and we can struggle with brain fog and memory, etc. Focusing if we don't get proper sleep. So this is an important part in helping you with energy production as well, because it helps you with mitochondrial health, and it reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes. Again, this is a hormonal imbalance which adds up to poor energy production, wherein you have enough glucose outside your cells in your bloodstream, but they're not able to be utilized by your cells for energy production. That's typically why many people who are obese, especially with a lot of belly fat, they have fatigue, right? They have poor energy levels, but it's not because they are not eating properly. Maybe they're having proper foods, but it's because the glucose is not being able to be utilized properly by their cells. So one of the things that you can do apart from diet and is also get proper sleep. So I hope that this this session has given you some ideas. It has helped increase your awareness about what's most likely at play for you when it comes to say low energy production, and hopefully you can start taking action today by implementing any one of these steps. Again, share one key takeaway, one thing that stood out for you, one thing that you can implement today in your life by sending me a DM at Anindita Rumta, or you can either drop in the comments or send me a message, because I would like to share with you one action step or maybe one tip to take you one step further from where you are right now. So I will be hosting sessions every alternate week in this Facebook group. If you know anyone who needs support with dealing with any kind of chronic illness, particularly autoimmune conditions, do invite them to join our group, and I will see you soon.